Okay, hello everyone. Carmen Johnson with the Healthy Kids Revolution Summit. Welcome back. You guys are in for a super treat today. We've had lots of science in the last few days. I hope everyone now is really starting to understand cell science and why it's important to eat what we do. And today our special guest, this is so fun, Holli and I actually graduated from the same nutrition school, which is the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and she is all over the place. Holli has been a Madison Avenue Slick, the VP of Chanel. She's been featured on CBS News, NBC, CBS, ABC, you name it. Holli has been there, very high profile. And what's so neat about Holli that I think you all are going to love is she is so down to earth. She's probably prettier on the inside than she is on the outside. And as you'll see from our slides, she's obviously beautiful on the outside. So Holli, welcome to the Healthy Kids Revolution Summit, and thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for that very nice introduction, and I'm so happy to be here. I love the topic, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, we both have kids, so we have that in common. I think we discussed that we both have 13-year-olds, and so we have an audience that is going to have an age range that, is as varied as the audience is. So what Holli is going to offer to us today is actually going to teach us about raw foods, and she's actually a raw food chef. So Holli, how about if we start off with, when we say raw food, especially what does that mean when it pertains to kids?
Yeah, I know, it sounds a little funny, doesn't it? So we're not talking about raw meat or steak tartare or anything, raw oysters. We're talking about this category of raw food that just basically means food that is not cooked. And food that is not cooked, so like, raw vegetables, raw fruit, raw nuts, raw seeds, basically your plant-based nutrition, if it is not cooked, the enzymes are alive. The enzymes that the food contains are alive, and so therefore that's therefore the benefit of raw food, for whether it be for children or for adults, is that the food comes complete with enzymes to digest, and basically enzymes are what our body uses and what our body needs to digest food. So generally our body has to provide enzymes, and a myriad, a variety of enzymes are needed to digest various foods, and they can be very specific and relate directly to the food that you're eating, or the food comes with its own if it is raw. So that's kind of a little microcosm of what we're talking about when we talk about raw food and the benefits of raw food. When it comes to our children, I personally don't know too many kids that are raised on a raw food diet, and that's not what I'm here to talk about or what I'm advocating. My son certainly was not raised on a raw food diet, but there are many benefits to adding in more raw foods to children's diets, because children and all of us adults generally don't get enough if we are eating the standard American diet. If we're eating what's in front of us, and at most kid parties and at kids' restaurants and kids' meals and, probably the cafeteria at your kid's school, if they have one, they're most likely not being given a lot of raw food. So that's what we want to talk about today.
Okay, that's awesome. And as a mother, I guess what challenges do you see most often with feeding children this way?
Well, I think, as I've just mentioned, the standard American diet, or the diet that is commonly out there in our country for children, is pretty void of anything that's alive. Another way of referring to raw food might be to call it alive. It is, when we were growing up, I used to get an apple in my lunch, right? And it was a whole apple. Or I would get an orange or a nectarine that I had to sit there and peel. And I can remember doing that when I was a little kid, right? Well, today's kids really don't get fruit like that too often. Moms are really into convenience. Raw fruit spoils, and it has to be maintained, and you have to shop for it frequently. And so it's a lot easier to grab packaged dehydrated apples, or apple chips are a big thing now, or fruit that comes in a plastic package that has a little plastic flip top. So those are the kinds of fruits that at least I see and I've seen for raising my child and knowing tons of kids passing in and out. That's passing in and out of my house and my community. Those are the snacks and those are the quote-unquote fruits, for example, that children are being given today. This is actually a true story, and it's just a crazy story. I had, once my son had some buddies come over from school, and it was when he was younger. You mentioned he was 13. It was when he was much younger. And I had these gorgeous, I had just been to the farmer's market, and I had these absolutely gorgeous peaches. And so I brought them down to the children. They're downstairs playing, and I said, would anyone like a peach? So, kids, yeah, the kids grabbed it. And one little boy took it, and he looked at me, he held it, and he said, what do I do with it?
Oh, my God.
And I said, well, you bite into it, and he was looking around, and he sees the other kids biting, and my son's, like, sitting there eating the peach, looking at him like, what does he mean, And this little boy had never, ever had a whole peach given to him. Like, he had always had it either, in syrup or in that plastic package I just talked about, or maybe dehydrated in some way, or maybe his mother peeled it, cut it up, and gave it to him in little cubes as part of a fruit salad. But he had never been given an absolutely luscious, fresh, sweet peach off of a tree.
Oh.
So
I bet you created a raving fan, didn't you?
Well, I don't know. I just would will just never forget that story, because for me it made it so clear to me. It was right around when I was starting my business, and it just made it so clear to me how far we had to go and what was happening to our food in America and the food that we are giving our children. And I will tell you, I mean, as you know, there is nothing like raising a child in today's world to make you acutely aware of what's wrong with the food system in our country and in many other countries too. I don't want to be exclusively focusing on the U.S. because a lot of other countries have this issue as well.
I think we lead the way, though, Holly, unfortunately, because of our capitalist society and the way that our mass marketing, over in Europe, they're not allowed to market food to children, and they're much more stringent on the ingredients list that go as far as the dyes and chemicals. So I do think, unfortunately, America is leading the way in not a good effort. I mean, we should lead the way in things that benefit our children, not serve to, bring down their health and demise and cause a society that's sicker than it was 40 years ago. So I'm totally with you on that. And I would love to know, I'm sitting here as a mother going, and as a teacher too, I teach kindergarten through 5th grade children how to incorporate new foods. And I just was thinking, I need to ask Holly, what are some great ways to add raw foods into our kids' diet? I mean, the whole premise of this summit is to give the listeners some simple takeaways. We don't want them to be overwhelmed, so we would like some simple takeaways on how to get some raw foods in that you found that work with your family and other children.
Yeah. So the reason we want to get these raw foods in, just to back up to that, because I'm not sure I fully addressed that. It's not so that we, I mentioned that raw food has enzymes. Eating more raw foods builds a healthy gut for your child, right? For you too, but for your child. It's beneficial to our digestion to have that assistance of adding in raw enzymes, and also many raw foods that are higher in nutrients than their cooked version. So they hold on to their fresh, live nutrients that are coming straight from the garden, straight from hopefully an enriched, gorgeous, healthy soil, and from the sun. So when you're taking that food in its raw state, it's more beneficial than boiling it, steaming it, losing some of the nutrients. I'm not saying it all, but by any means. So eating more raw food helps build a healthy gut. Most of your child's immunity is in their gut. It's in their digestion. So the healthier your child's digestion by adding in more raw fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and plant-based nutrition, the stronger your child's immunity will be. And I've seen this firsthand with my child, with working with some moms, for their family's nutrition. It absolutely works. So here are some easy ways that I have found over the years working with kids. One is I'm a huge fan of smoothies. Okay, and smoothies are really big right now, and a lot of people can find smoothies at every airport and smoothie, Jamba Juice and smoothie machines and all this. So one person's smoothie is not another person's smoothie. You do not want to buy a ready-made smoothie without looking at the ingredients. If the ingredients are like a laundry list, if it's highly processed, that is not the kind of smoothie we're talking about. We're talking about building your own smoothie from your blender in your kitchen. It's super easy. If you stock up on certain superfoods and a good quality plant-based protein that you can add to your smoothie for your child, I always recommend a non-dairy milk. Some kids do absolutely fine with milk, but a lot of kids do not do well with milk, and so I always recommend a non-dairy milk, like an organic almond milk or a hemp milk, and that's something that if you really get into this, you can start making your own. That's something that we do in our house. So you could create a smoothie, like a kind of a milkshake. You can add some raw cacao powder to make a chocolate smoothie. You can add a natural sweetener like coconut sugar is a fantastic sweetener to add to a smoothie because it's low glycemic. It's not going to create inflammation that even an organic cane sugar will create. So coconut sugar is my new favorite, and you can buy that in a powder form. You can add that. You can try raw local honey is really good for your child as long as your child is over 2 years old. You can use grade B maple syrup. It's very high in nutrients and minerals, in your B vitamins for your kids. A lot of kids love the taste of maple syrup. So just imagine creating this, this chocolate milkshake, if you will. Use, with a little bit of maple syrup, some cocoa, some almond milk, a protein powder that is organic. I like a hemp protein powder or anything. You don't want to whey. I'm not in favor of whey protein powder because it, again, is the dairy byproduct. But just make sure that it's an organic plant-based protein. And so you add all this together. Another thing I love to do is our raw dates to add in as a sweetener. That's a great idea. And then you can put some fruit in. You can put in half a cup of your child's favorite berry. You can put a banana. A banana makes it turn into like a milkshake, a creamy milkshake. And if you peel your bananas and freeze them ahead of time, even better, because then it adds that cold, creamy milkshake consistency. So that's just a little verbal formula there. I have plenty of recipes on my website at nutritionalstyle.com or hollithompson.com, HOLLITHOMPSON, and as I said, I have a ton of recipes there that you can find that are going to be creamy. Another thing I love to do is if you're into green smoothies, and I know a lot of people are really into them these days. My son just created something that he was calling alien juice. I think I told you about this when we talked the other day, Carmen. And we call it alien juice because it's green, but it's a lot of kids are like, oh, it's green. But if you tell them that, it's alien juice, it's like bug juice or Shrek juice, whatever you choose to call it, your kids will love it. And that's a terrific way to get some greens in that can be cucumbers, some romaine, a little bit of kale. You can add your banana in there. You can add some mango or some pineapple or something that's really going to give it that, almost a tropical, delicious flavor that your child can't resist, but yet it's going to be green. And that recipe for alien juice is on my blog, too. Another thing that you can do is, and that's for at home. Those are at-home snacks.
Right.
Another thing that you can do for the lunchbox, I used to do this every day. I swear my child had this every day in his lunch for I can't tell you how many years, and he still loves it. Instead of sending that round apple, because as I said, nobody does it anymore, and a lot of times I would get tired of sending in an apple, and it would come home again because my son would say, Mama, it takes too long to bite into, and it's no longer the day where all the kids pull out their apples, as we're talking about. So what I started to do was slice it with the skin on, make sure it's an organic apple. I would slice it and put it in a bag and then add cinnamon and shake the bag so that the cinnamon would coat the slices of apple. what would happen is that it would sit in his lunch, and generally, really underneath that cinnamon, it's oxidizing. The enzymes, actually the live enzymes are at work, and they're turning the apple brown. But because you've sprinkled it with cinnamon, your child doesn't see that it's brown. It's my sneaky trick. And it tastes like apple pie. And so by the time the kid eats it, it's like, and that's what my son and his buddies used to call it. Can you make the apple pie slices for us?
That is so clever, Holly.
Huge bags to tennis practice or, soccer games.
I love it.
And the kids absolutely love it. So, and cinnamon is sweet, so it just, it's really good. So that's one of my favorite tips. The other thing that I used to do, and this worked really well for me, and it's worked well for a lot of my clients, is when, that time when, let's say it's right before dinner. Let's say you gave your child a little after-school alien juice, and then you're cooking dinner, and it's about 6 or 6:30, and your child's like, Mama. And I used to make, I would say to my son, sit down, I'll make your appetizer platter. So he would get to have his appetizer platter while I was cooking. And I would always use just a little bit of an organic ranch dressing or a teeny bit of, you don't want something that's going to ruin their dinner, but just a teeny bit. And I would use whatever crudité I had available, with carrots or celery, cucumber slices, pepper slices, maybe some olives. And I would make him just a little plate, and because that's also high in fiber and raw. Yes. By the way, these are all raw snacks. So he would sit there and love that and enjoy that, and it would take the edge of his hunger, but also would ensure that he was getting some raw food in his meal, and he was taking in those fabulous enzymes. He was getting in high fiber. Phytochemicals from this nice assortment of color that I just gave him, and he loved it. Yeah, we did that for years, and he still loves it when I do that. So yeah, I think those are my best tips.
I like that, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking of maybe I should throw in some of my tips too, because one thing that I found that was really helpful in teaching these kids is, was brainstorming, going, how am I going to get these kids more excited about fruits? And I came upon a pear, and then I was in the store, and I realized I would buy the same brand of pear every time. Like everybody eats the Granny Smith apples, or they'll eat the golden apples, the Golden Delicious. And I thought, why not make it a game, and let's see how many different kinds of pears there are, and let's try every one of them and pick out our top 3 favorites. And so we went through and found out where each pear came from, where it really originated. We would try them, sample them, taste them. Same thing with apples. I mean, I think we, as parents, we get so into a rut that we're so used to buying the very standard, ordinary things that we know our children will eat. But again, I think as an effort of trying to roll the kids into the process, bring them in the kitchen, have them whip up the smoothie, have them think up, what am I going to concoct in this recipe? Let them be the wizards that are making. Just go in the fridge and put a couple of things together and let's make a smoothie and see what it tastes like. I think that kids love to experiment. And I think just trying to go through the variety. How many different kinds of carrots are there? Let's try the different kinds. There's different kinds of bananas, the plantains, the regular bananas. So I think if we could encourage everybody, all the listeners on this call, to step outside of your comfort zone. Stop doing the same old things and try to just broaden your horizons. Maybe just once a week try something new. And you don't have to buy in bulk. Just buy one sampling. Let the whole family try it. As a way just to start to really round out their I guess that pyramid that we're making of the My Plate, just try to get as many different things on there, variety of color and textures, and taste that you can. And that was one thing that popped in my head as you were talking about your super green smoothies and how do we get things into kids. And so, how about restaurants? We always have trouble when we go to restaurants. How do we navigate the challenges when we take our kids out to eat?
It's a really hard one. And my biggest no. I mean, my son is a happy omnivore, a healthy omnivore, and he eats meat and, and all that. And I'm really, really big and a huge advocate of not eating factory farmed animal protein. I don't, meat is, I'm totally fine with it. Anyone eating animal protein, or if you need meat in your life, or eggs, or anything like that. I mean, but my rule is that if I'm going to do that, if my family's going to do that, I want to know where it comes from. I want to know that it's organic and that it's hormone-free and antibiotic-free. So that makes it even more challenging when it comes to restaurants. What I try to do, and I'm just going to say try because I do think with children we can err on trying too hard and children can go the other way. I think that it's really tough with kids. I mean, I think it's a fine line that we walk by encouraging our children to eat in a healthy way and training their palates at a young age for, the flavor of different vegetables and fruits and not, too much sugar. And having them get to to a certain age and completely rebel against you. And I have seen that happen with kids. So I try to be, reasonable about it, and not be crazy, and do my best. I try to pick restaurants that I know do offer local animal proteins, local meats, and that are not raised, in factory farms and with that, with hormones and antibiotic use and et cetera. If we are traveling, if we're somewhere on the road and it's going to happen, I try to encourage my son to not eat meat and to maybe get a plant-based solution, something that's going to be more of a, vegetarian meal, or just to avoid the meat, and maybe, I don't know, maybe something like a pasta or something like that. I mean, not that it's that much better. There's it's a scale, but that's what I try to do. What I also do is to make sure that he is having some vegetable with every meal. So if it's a blowout and we're like at a kids restaurant, whatever, and all the kids are having pizza or whatever, I mean, I will almost always try to have salads first so that he has some greens, some vegetables in him. If we're ordering a meal, I'll make sure that if it doesn't come with a vegetable, that we order vegetables for the table. Because he loves vegetables. Usually at restaurants, if you go to a nice restaurant, they're really nicely cooked and they taste good, and so we try to do that, and that's just sort of the rule. If he'll say, "Okay, Mom, I want this," I'll say, "Okay, great. Can you start with a salad?" Or Caesar salad it's easy. Most kids love it. I do kids meals here all the time for 10, 12, 15 kids at a time, and I will always do a big, huge Caesar salad, and all the kids love it. So I think you just you do what you can without feeling too crazy, because at some point, the tips I gave earlier, those are wonderful for, little kids and, on up, but at some point you're not going to be able to control what they eat. So if you just try to explain, your reasoning behind it, and my son totally gets this whole idea about, no, I don't want to eat factory farmed meat, and so he'll shift, he'll shift it over.
And I think that's a good point, Holly, too, it's about moderation. It's not about deprivation. We don't want to always feel deprived, but it's about moderation. And during that time, when we have to make choices, if we can make the lesser of two evils of our choices. So I think parents beat themselves up, and then they kind of give up. It's like, well, we didn't eat well today, and then they'll just go on a pattern of, I don't have time to get home to cook this. We're going to swing by the McDonald's, and people are in such a rush that they're not taking the time to go, you know what, okay, even if today wasn't perfect, tomorrow's another day, and tomorrow I can try once again to make the right choices. And I think you're giving our audience a great, just a basket full of ideas that you've given us. I was just thinking, we'll get 3 takeaways, and your recipes, and I was looking at your website before we started talking, and I love the Ezekiel bread. It may be your post for today or yesterday, but slicing up avocado and squeezing some lemon juice and throwing some crushed red peppers on the top and putting that on a slice of toasted Ezekiel bread is a wonderfully balanced nutritional meal. And I think parents, the other thing that you and I might be able to do is just encourage the listeners to, just try to do something different. Like, I didn't grow up in a house where there was a chef, and you've obviously gone back to culinary school and have learned tremendous amount. If a lot of us don't have the time or the or the ability to go back to culinary school, there's still no reason. You can't follow Holly, look at her simple recipes, see what she's putting out there, and just make a commitment, because if we as moms and dads don't make a commitment now to take care of our children's health and protect it now, then we are in for a very, very sad glimpse of our future with our children, because disease will be so bad and so prevalent that we're going to probably end up putting our own children under before we go under. And that's a very sad thought, but I hate to say it in that way, but I think that we have to shock parents in a way to get them to wake up and go, just because my child is skinny does not mean your child is healthy. I want to make that point. And we talked about cell nutrition earlier on throughout the summit, that the children's cells need the proper nutrition. And if we're putting junk food in our kids, if we're not doing as Holly's saying and getting some great raw foods that have enzymes that are going to help with digestion in the gut, that's going to provide immense immunity for our kids, if we're coating those cells, and we'll go back to the slide of the cell, if we go back and think about a compromised cell, if you look at the slide that's showing right now, it says you're made up of 70 trillion cells. And if we're made up of 70 trillion cells, everything in us is a cell, how can we not be concerned about cell health? And doing, as Holly's suggesting, bringing in the raw fruits and vegetables are nurturing our cell health. So again, I think this is a call to action for everybody, Holly. That's really the purpose of the Healthy Kids Revolution Summit, is to call parents to action and say, you've got to make some steps. Even if they're baby steps, you need to make some steps to ensure the health of your children. So having gotten on that bandwagon, sorry about that. I know we want to hear a few more things with you before you leave. Where do you see us going with this in America? Do you see a trend shifting from your perspective of us getting to be a little bit healthier as a nation, or where do you see us going?
I really think that it's going in two different directions. There are a lot of people that are definitely becoming more enlightened. I think that there's a little bit more education built into to women right now as that are coming out of school. People are starting to learn more about education, about nutrition in school. So as those kids grow up and have babies, let's hope that there will be more advocacy and demand for healthier food. Organic food companies are on the rise. There's 10 years ago, it was very difficult to find an organic baby food. I think there were one or two brands. And now there are shelves loaded with organic snacks and baby foods and frozen foods and whole foods. And, there are just so many wonderful ways to get support around that. On the other hand, a lot of those products are expensive. They are pricey because the real price of food in our country is not reflected in what we pay at the grocery store for processed foods, because the processed foods contain a lot of cheap ingredients, and so therefore families that are struggling and that are on a limited budget can often find it difficult in our country to afford raw vegetables and fresh vegetables, and it's a lot easier to grab a processed, something processed, or a cheap and inexpensive frozen pizza, or whatever it is. Whatever it is that comes in a box or a package that is fast and easy and inexpensive, and so unfortunately there's a huge trend of that style of eating, and throw fast foods in there in our country. So I don't, I see it going in two different ways. I try to be optimistic, and certainly I feel like my, what I have been bringing out into the world with my company in the past few years, I like to think that I've been part of that movement. I've seen huge, tremendous strides for the better in what we have to offer kids and in the standards and more organics. On the other hand, mothers and fathers are busy and work hard, and today's world is, it's a busy one, and people want it easy, and a lot of families don't want to have to, to come home and cook home-cooked meal from scratch. And I think that's a shame. I think that if you're going to do one thing for your family this week, carve out, even if you're not making any home-cooked meals, carve out one day, maybe two a week, and say, that's the night my child's going to get something that I make. And it could be something, something as simple as, broiling or stir-frying a bunch of cut-up vegetables with onions and some soy sauce, and throw in some, cut-up chicken breast, and, do some brown rice, and your kids will love it. And it's not a big deal, and you don't have to go to culinary school to learn how to do that. It's very simple. So, I think it's all a process, but I do want to say that if you believe that your child is going to be healthy and your child's going to be raised with, proper nutrition, and you're buying all of your food from the inner aisles of the grocery store, and your child is eating canned soup and frozen pizza and or takeout pizza or pasta 3 nights a week, that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it. And what I would try doing there, if your lifestyle is that crazy and busy, is try adding in these vegetables and these, the different things that we talked about, the different tips I gave you, a little appetizer platter, a salad with every meal, make a big Caesar salad. So, yeah.
And you know what, Holly, that's not cooking. Again, that's the beauty of your cooking. Raw. Raw doesn't require any cooking, so all you do is just throw some things together, cut them up. I mean, it's minimal effort, really, to get those things on the table if you just plan ahead a little bit. And like you said, I think the raw is taking, part of the rigors out of cooking, and it's more beneficial for our bodies than when we do cook it and sort of destroy some of the enzymes that are already in there that we need. So, I love that. And so, kind of to recap, because I want to save a moment to plug your new book that's coming out. To recap the talk today, what would you say would be probably your top 3 takeaways that you would want parents to just, something they can implement? Top 3 things.
I think just do your best. It's it's a process. It's progress. It's not about perfection. And I gave you my point of view on perfection. I think that it's a precarious walk because I think when you overly focus on food and nutrition, you bear the risk of veering your child the other way when they can. You don't want to have a little girl who has has never had sugar her entire life, and then goes to her friends and there's and the cupboard is filled with cookies and soda and ice cream in the freezer, and then she just gorges on it. I mean, you want to teach your children a balanced, healthy approach, and that that an occasional sweet is healthy and fine and good, and you should absolutely should have it. And you want your kid to be a kid because, like it or not, you are raising them where you're raising them, and that's what they're going to be exposed to. So if I think that I always caution against being too rigid with these nutrition guidelines and trying too hard. I think of eating disorders as well. That's how a lot of eating disorders are started by, that kind of rigid control when kids are very young. So I would say do your best. Go for as much organic as you can possibly afford. If you cannot, will not, or buy 100% organic produce, I would go to the EWG.org. That's the Environmental Working Group, and it's EWG.org, and see their list of the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. The Dirty Dozen are the common fruits and vegetables that are heavily sprayed that you do not want to feed your child in non-organic form. So, and believe it or not, apples are on that list. And there's another really common one. I want to say peppers, but there are some very common.
Actually, taped in my cupboard.
Sorry.
So if I go look at my cupboard, the apples, so the Dirty Dozen are apples, celery, strawberry, peaches.
Celery.
Even if you're eating the skin on or a leafy green, anything that you're going to ingest. That was kind of my simple rule to give parents. They're like, I can't remember what the 12 are. I'm like, if it has an external peel on it that you're not going to consume, like an avocado or, watermelon, although I think watermelon does get a little bit polluted. As a general rule, like a banana, would you say that a banana has to be organic? I mean, you peel the exterior of the banana off.
Yeah, I mean, again, what I would do, I'm recommending you go to that website because it's a fabulous website and they keep it updated.
Yes.
There are times
they
revise it. And, we could easily say, yeah, go ahead and have banana, but you know what? Bananas are a popular food. It could, that could change going forward. So I would just say print it out. They actually have little guides that they will either mail you or that you can print out and keep it in your wallet. You can it also comes as an app for your smartphone. So when you get to the grocery store, you can be like, okay, what was that? Boom, you have it on an app. And it could not be easier. I would just use that as your guide. And then take a look at the Clean 15. Those are the vegetables and fruits that are not heavily sprayed and that you don't necessarily need to buy organic. And that's a great way to maneuver. And I would just also leave you with, just this idea of adding in every day in a really easy way some raw fruits or vegetables. And try the different smoothies, try the little apple trick, try the appetizers for your child before dinner, try the Caesar salad, and add a couple of croutons and a little bit of grated cheese on top, and that usually, will get them to and all of a sudden love eating a salad. And just try all those little easy tricks, add those into your kid's day.
And Holly, I thought of another point when you said that. In our kitchen, I used to worry about buying the fresh fruits and vegetables because, like you said, they often would go bad. We'd get 6 bananas and 3 of them would go bad before we would eat them. And so what I have found is, to encourage parents, don't worry about that. If you buy a pack of strawberries, maybe let the family eat half the strawberries, and then I just do what you do. I wash the strawberries, and then I chop them up and throw them in the freezer, and then they're ready for tomorrow morning smoothie. So that way I'm not wasting my food. And then I do like dehydrating. If you don't mind me asking you real quickly about that, because I dehydrate a lot of fruits for my boys because they don't necessarily like, the banana gets bruised by the time it gets to school. The apple gets bruises on it, and then they don't eat it. Well, if I dehydrate it, I understand what you just said, that I'm probably compromising some of the live enzymes, or maybe even, am I compromising all of the live enzymes by dehydrating?
Not if you're dehydrating, no, because you're heating it at a low heat. So you're actually preserving them. I think that's a great idea.
Okay, and so that's what I have found very helpful. So instead of sending an apple, and the child gets tired of getting an apple every day, I'll buy a bag of apples of Granny Smith, the pink ladies, just a variety, the little golden delicious ones, and then chop up kiwi, banana, grapes, strawberries, any fruit you can think of, mango, and we dry it. We have sheets of, the dehydrator has sheets, and my boys actually, they're 11 and 13, and for the last 2 years, they have been chopping up my vegetables and fruits to do this. So you obviously get the kids engaged in the activity, and then we just make little bags of dehydrated fruit. I just grab a little handful, and it's a variety. They get the skin from the kiwi, they get the skin from the apples, all of that in a meal. And it doesn't get squished. It doesn't, it stays perfectly fine for weeks on end without going bad, without getting mold. And anyway, so that's another thought for parents there, on the dehydrated fruits and ways to get.
Yeah, if you do have a dehydrator, great. If you don't have a dehydrator and you want to invest in one, it's a great investment. Especially in the summer when there is a lot of produce, you can have fun with it. If you have a garden, it's a great investment. Yeah.
And I bought mine probably 6 years ago, and it was $200, and we have used it for 6 years, and the thing is still working. So it is a little bit of an investment, but it's a fun activity with the kids, and it's a great way when you think your fruit's going bad, just chop it up and dehydrate it or throw it in the freezer and use it in your smoothie or make your dried fruit with it. So anyway, well, I think you've just given us a grand interview, and I think everybody's going to probably need to go to your Twitter and Facebook pages and show you tons of love, because these are helpful ideas that are going to help us get our kids healthy. And then the last slide that I had to share everybody was about your new book. This is your first solo book. Is that right?
Well, my the book that's currently out is an anthology. It's called Optimism, and it's an uplifting anthology of different stories of overcoming adversity. And I'm in that book along with Meryl Streep and Bono and Michelle Obama, and all the proceeds went to charity, which is a great book. I am so that's available on my website.
Perfect.
I invite you all to come and visit me on my website and sign up. There is a free seasonal recipe book that's yours for opting into my newsletter if you're interested in receiving that on a weekly basis, where I cover a lot of issues related to what we talked about today. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on my own book to be out in 2014. So be sure to connect in with me through my newsletter or on Facebook or Twitter. You'll find all the Pinterest, Instagram. You'll find all those links on my website. I have a lot of fun with social media, and share tons and tons of tips and recipes and things that I think you should know about and maybe be involved with. So, so I'd love to connect with you all, and good luck with everything. With your kids, it's such an exciting time, and it's such a gift to be able to impart this to your child. It really, my son is just coming out of the phase where I was able to have a lot of influence, and now I will share that I am reaping the rewards of that good training where, he knows. He doesn't always do it, but he does know, and I watch him make really healthy choices, and I watch him, be aware of things from a sustainability point of view that makes me very proud. So.
Oh, I know. I was going to say, you sound like a very proud mama. This is just what we live for. As parents, we want to raise children to make good choices, bottom line. And you guys can find Holli at nutritionalstyle.com. Please go visit her and give her some love, show her some love. And again, Holli, thank you for donating your time today. I know you're super busy. You had many other choices of things to do, and you were generous enough to give your time to the Healthy Kids Revolution Summit. And I hope that this endeavor impacts hundreds of thousands of lives, and little children are going to grow up a lot healthier. So, again, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much, and, good luck, everybody. It's so nice being here today.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, have a great day, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.